Pete, thanks for coming today, man.
Great to be here.
We got a lot to talk about. I met you probably about 6 years ago. You kind of kicked off the CEO roundtable that I was able to participate in, which was a really fun group. I miss those guys.
Yeah.
We try to get together once a quarter, and there's a core group of about 6 of us that, JD and a couple of other guys, we do get together, and it's always fun. But I enjoyed the therapy of the CEO roundtable once a month, getting in a room and learning that every business has the same problems. They just have a different set of clothes on them. The lady with the home health agency had the same issues as the architect, as me, as the pecan guy, as the guy with the phone company. It was fun.
Yeah. And almost everyone, when you'd say, I hesitate to say this, and then you could see everybody in the room shaking their head going, yep, been there, done that. And then inevitably somebody says, and this is how I solved it. And that peer learning is incredible.
Yeah, it made the room smaller right away. As soon as everybody relaxed, I think there was probably 2 sessions where people were still a little, first date kind of thing. But once that breakthrough of trust happened, the room got smaller, and we all look forward to that day. And I guess the difference for me, the first couple of meetings, people were popping outside to take phone calls and stuff. About 3 or 4 meetings in, nobody left the room. We didn't want to miss anything, and that was beautiful.
Right. Well, and now you see those peers anywhere, and you have that instant bond connection. You can call any of them anytime.
It's like a classmate thing.
And everybody wants, even if you're in the same industry, even if you're semi-competitors, you want to help them. You want to help each other. That's beautiful. That's Acadiana.
Peer learning. Yeah, it's the culture too. You're right. Yeah. Well, Pete, you have a varied background in a lot of different things, and I think it makes you kind of a international Wikipedia of business knowledge, and I've looked forward to talking to you for quite a while. So for those of us that don't know you, take us through the elevator speech of who Pete Prados is.
Wow, if I think back of what God's done in my life over the last couple of decades, I'm really pretty amazed at how he connected the dots. But coming there for college, fell in love with a Cajun girl, decided to take a temporary job working straight commission sales, turned into this kid coming to us, me and a friend, after praying about starting a business, about going offshore and training this new thing called Windows 95. And so we bought a bunch of laptops and kind of took that plunge. The business I was with was asking me to move to the home office. I had a choice at that point. Do I follow this kid with this new software thing? And we decided yes, and we wind up going offshore, and we worked for amazing companies, Unical, Mobile, Kerr-McGee. Turns out that not only did they want to learn about this new software, Windows 95, and this new suite that Microsoft was putting out, they also needed software and help desk support. So following the money trail as a businessman with our partners, it was incredible how the timing worked out to not only do we want to learn this, but can you teach us about software, this Microsoft Access thing? That turned into, can you just write software for us? So we went from a training company to a software development company. And long story short, we wound up writing software for the drilling industry, and the whole business turned into that software called DrillLogic. NOV saw what we were doing. They partnered with us, and they wound up buying the company. And that was in 2005. Some of the people still work for that company today. I had a 2-year commitment, stayed for 4, traveled the world doing international sales. It was unbelievable, just incredible what I learned through NOV and that experience. Came back. That's when I met you. I wanted to get back to the community, and we started the first Shark Tank type pitches in this area.
Right.
We started a company called InventureWorks, and we partnered with startup community here. Saw probably 400 or 500 startups. That turned into a nonprofit called Innovate Acadiana. I was the director. That's where I met you, the CEO roundtable with Community Foundation. And then eventually God led us to spin off again and start another company, which led to me becoming now a broker with Sunbelt Business Brokers. And I get a chance to work with people that are on both sides of the table. And that's where my journey is now. It's incredible.
Well, good. Amazing journey.
It was a long elevator.
Yeah. The elevator got stuck. The fire department had to come rescue us. One of the things we do here is we tell stories. It's called the Leadership Podcast, but there's so much leadership involved in starting a business, running a business, and eventually exiting a business. And the idea of what you do now is so intriguing to me because as a former business owner myself, most mom and pop businesses, medium-sized businesses, don't think about exit strategy at all. The exit strategy is usually, I'm going to hand this down to my son or daughter or relative at some point. Sometimes that doesn't work out. And the business owners I've seen that become emotionally attached to their business, when it comes to selling it, those two things are inversely opposite to what reality is. So let's talk about what you do now, and let's talk about some stories of people that have had successes and failures and problems with businesses.
Yeah. I'd say you're right. Most people that are thinking about selling their business really have no clue as to what the value is. They typically think about the potential, right? And they don't really think about how a bank looks at it. So the big aha for me, and I mentioned this to you earlier, when I sold my business, I just went to my CPA and said, hey, this is what I think the business is worth. Got somebody that's very interested. It's an international company, a little bit overwhelmed. What do you think? Here's what I think it's worth. And he said, that seems fair. Why don't you add 20% to that and see what they say? And immediately I said, okay. And I did. And NOV said, yeah, that seems fair. We'll buy the company. So as thankful as I was, my wife and I were extremely thankful. The real question was, how much should we leave on the table? And, I'll never know. I'll never know that. So now when I talk to people who are even thinking about selling their business, even if it's a year or 2 or 3 out, we do what's called a business broker's opinion of value, a business valuation. And it takes the mystery out of what your business is worth. That's a marker in time where you can build upon. And not only can you see if we sold the business now, what it would be worth. And by the way, buyers are not our issue. Healthy businesses are very easy to sell. It'll allow you to see what moves the needle. And that, to me, that truth teller takes the mystery out of everything. We charge for that. It's a nominal fee, and that you get the money back if we sell your company. But it takes about 3 or 4 weeks, but we look at your finances, P&Ls, balance sheets, all of that. And then we look at comps of other businesses like yours that have actually sold. And then this is the multiple that we use. This is why we use it. And then we take it a step further with SBA. We pre-flight it, meaning we send it to SBA lenders and say, if we find the buyer, would you finance this
right
at that price? And again, that comes back to you in a large document, and now you know. And you can say, wow, that looks amazing, or, oh, I need to work on that. And we have both of those. We're updating financials all the time for companies that said, thank you, I know where I'm at now. Let's refresh the valuation in 6 months, a year, 2 years, keep it going until we hit the number.
How surprised are some business owners when you give them that opinion valuation, how far off they are mentally?
A lot.
Yeah.
I'd say a lot. We probably, the people that come to us, I don't know the percentages, but I bet half will say, oh, that's not what I thought. And they typically talk about the potential of what's to come and in the pipeline and things like that. And the reality hits them when we say we can't sell it on what's in the future. We can only sell it based on what you've done in the past. And because anything, as we know, can happen in the future. But some of them say, that's exactly where I thought it would be. Let's do this. Or it's close enough. So I'd say a lot of people are shocked in a good way or a bad way. It really depends on the mindset and the reality. If somebody's bought a business before and they've used a bank, then they typically say, yeah, that's about what I thought. For those who have just built a business over time and run it, their way is like a family business, it's usually, right. I thought it was worth a whole lot more than that. And they don't understand what a lender looks at when they look at that business.
Many small businesses involve two partners or more than two partners. In those situations, does that make it more problematic or less problematic?
Yeah, it depends on the mindset. We have a saying that if it's two partners, then they want to sell for $2 million. If it's three partners, it's $3 million. Right?
Yeah.
But it really depends on the partners. Some of them, they're at the retirement age. So there's a couple of reasons why people exit, and we see this all the time. And right now, by the way, you and I are boomers, and this is going to be the largest transfer of wealth ever in history, from boomers selling their companies, people in their 60s and 70s, largest transfer of wealth to the next gen, which, by the way, are ready. But ask the question again. Two partners, multiple partners.
Multiple partners, and one being ready to sell and one not being ready to sell. How do you navigate those?
Yeah, so I'll answer it in two parts. What I was going to say earlier is usually people want to sell for a couple of reasons. They're either burnout or there's a medical issue, which we see in boomers, or it's just retirement time, or one partner wants to get out, the other one doesn't want to buy him out. I'd say that it's a little bit more difficult with multiple partners unless they're equally yoked on the same page and ready. And one doesn't, and there's no successor like we talked about earlier. Sometimes it's a family member of one or the other, but if that's not there and their number two person can't afford to exit, partnerships can be sticky.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about leadership. You mentioned being able to be bought out by a larger company, and it gave you an opportunity to travel and experience cultures and businesses all around the world. How did that prepare you for what you do now?
That going to China, going to Scotland, going to all throughout Europe, seeing how different cultures operate was very eye-opening. But I'd say that's on the very large scale. Most of the companies that we sell now are Main Street, say less than $5 million, or lower middle market, up to $50 million or so. So we sell both. In those cultures, I guess it was more a personal learning to see how other cultures operate. But at the same time, I got to see small businesses that were absorbed by companies like NOV and how they work. So that experience was incredible. I'd say my experience is better suited for my buyers and sellers from what I experienced personally, starting a company from scratch, building it, and selling it. I've also started companies from scratch, built them, and had to sell it because I had to close them down. So I've been on both sides of that table.
All right. Well, at this point, I'm going to kick it over to you. Open forum. Whatever you want to talk about is good.
I think that there's probably a mystery about business brokers. When you go to sell your house, you typically go to a realtor. If you've done a FSBO and you've gone through that, you realize that it's not as easy as you thought.
Right.
And you really don't know what the house is worth. I'd say liken that to your business. If you've built a business and you really know that inevitably you will sell, I'd say go to a broker early. We see a lot of people that are on the downside of it. The business has peaked, and now it's starting to not do as well. Financials aren't as good as they were before, and then they're wanting to pull the parachute. Well, that's not the time to sell. The time to sell is when you are on the rise, when the business is flourishing, when you've got a lot of work ahead of you. That's when you're going to sell for the highest amount. The other thing is people don't realize that when you run your business like a mom and pop and you do a lot and you run a lot of personal stuff through your business, including cash, that's typically not a good thing when it comes to evaluation. Cash especially, we can't do anything with that. If it's a cash business and it's not run through your books, you've just paid, you've bought your business back for that amount of money. If you have add backs is what we call them. These are financial adjustments of things you've run through the business that everybody does, whether it's your personal cell phones or things that you might call it a camp for entertainment purposes, but the next buyer is not going to do that. That gets added to your cash flow and then times the multiple. Most people don't realize that. Most of the time that we spend with sellers is asking those questions about those add backs and adjustments. And in that case, they're typically very excited because that gets added to cash flow times the multiple, and the value goes up. But that's always scrutinized. So I'd say clean your books up. That's the one thing we always tell people is if when you come back, here are the 3 things you want to work on, and make sure your books are clean and have a good CPA, good accountant. And I'd say that's something that most people don't realize, but get a valuation. It's worth it.
Yeah, good points. So it benefits a business to have an office in Gulf Shores.
Sometimes.
Yeah. To service the clients that are there on the beach and riding the pontoon boats and the wave runners in the bay there.
If that's your normal way of doing business, same thing with like bonuses. A lot of people give cash bonuses to people. Well, if that's your normal way of doing business, that literally was just asked us by, we're selling a pretty large company right now, and we're going through the LOI process, and we're in due diligence, which can take 3 to 6 months, which is something we should talk about, how long it takes to actually sell a business once you have a buyer and that process. But he's asking about those cash bonuses because you can't break the culture. The culture is really important to a new buyer. If they've expected that, if the wife has expected that, if it's around Christmas time, and where's a bonus? And if it's not there with the new buyer, then what would you think? Like, the new buyers aren't financially viable. Right. So business as usual is critical for a new business going forward and a new buyer taking over that business. So think through all those things as well.
In particular, the business we're in the oil and gas industry. We're a service company. The oil and gas industry has been pounded with cyclical natures, and we've been pounded from the aspect of nobody wants to do business. The banking industry has distanced itself for many years from the oil and gas industry. And luckily, we're privately owned and debt-free and stable. This company was built like a lemonade stand from a Lannis & Ken's garage to a storage unit in a garage to a building to what we are today. But in reference to oil and gas companies that contacted you, small and medium oil and gas service companies, how beat up are they in regards to sale prices?
Yeah. And you and I've lived through the cycle. So, I remember when I graduated from college, the bumper stickers were last one out of Lafayette, turn out the lights, right in mid-'80s. And we've been through those cycles. The oil field has kind of shifted, as you know, to Houston. Service companies are still here, and we've sold service companies. It's not necessarily that it's an oil field service company. It's really about contracts, revenue, and not going from project to project as much, more maintenance. Right. So kind of like a construction company. If you think about construction companies, they go from project to project to project, and it's a bid, win the work, do it, bid, win the work, do it. And that cyclical nature scares a lot of banks, especially if it's that plus oil field. But if you have a patent or if you have a service or you have a contract and you have a long history, the good news is that every bank will look at your history, and that's the truth teller about where you've been, and typically means where you're going, unless something dramatic has happened. So I'm not scared of oil field companies. It's where I cut my teeth. That's where I've been in. I've been offshore many, many times, been around the world in oil field companies, and there is a healthy appetite. I'm selling one right now that's a lower middle market, very healthy maintenance company for oil field, and I won't get into specifics on it. And banks love it. It's healthy because you can see where the cash flow is going because it's every week it's the same thing. It's putting people out there on a regular basis and the equipment that goes along with it. But I would say if you're an oil field service company and you have a chance to diversify, it does help for sure. We see a lot of companies that, they've been servicing the oil field for decades, and they've never diversified. In fact, they don't even have an active sales force. They just keep getting the orders. And that can be problematic if your sales are going down.
Sure. That's certainly a risk to keep expecting things to continue. You mentioned timing and how long it takes to do this. Let's talk about that a little bit. Like if a person has a business and they're say 5 to 10 years from a planned retirement, you mentioned they definitely should get an evaluation so they know where they are, set that benchmark, and move from there. But if a person contacts y'all, how long does it take to go from start to the day you're in the closing and you walking away with the check and taking cruises for the rest of your life?
Yeah, yeah. I would say it depends on the company. I know we have another saying that if you've sold 10 companies, if you've sold 10 companies, you've sold 10 companies. Like, they're all different. So we have some. I just sold one that it took 80 days from them coming to me to close. That's very rare. It was very specific. There were only so many people that we could go to really that could buy the company. It was a strategic buy, and they had cash. Those are rare. I'd say typically somebody comes to us, they do a valuation that takes about 30 days or so, 4 weeks. And then we go to market confidentially. Nobody knows what the business is. They sign NDAs before they ever find out, but we vet them first. That process can take 2-3 months. And I'd say once we get to a letter of intent where we have a buyer, seller, purchase agreement in place, the financial part of due diligence can easily take 60 days or so, and then the bank part another 60. So I'd say from start to finish, we've seen them as short as 3 or 4 months to as long as 8-10 months, probably more than norm.
I know in the real estate market, there are people that are considered buyers. Like there's people that real estate people know that this guy likes to buy single family houses in good subdivisions because he's got a portfolio of money and that's what he wants. So when they come across one, they go to them. Do you guys have people that come to y'all and say, hey, I've done well. I've got some cash. I like to invest in a business. This is my budget. This is the kind of businesses I'm looking for. Do you have buyers, or it's more specific?
All the time.
Yeah.
There's 4 brokers in our office right now. We all have what we call pocket buyers. If we find someone that is selling their HVAC, plumbing, service company, whatever, we have buyers that are just waiting. So, yeah, the more cash flow, the easier the buyers. And there's a lot of national buyers as well. Depending on the company, if it's a bit AI proof, which is another thing we should probably talk about a little bit. AI is changing our industry a lot. But I'd say for the most part, anytime we have a healthy business and we put it to market confidentially and it's a good business, we get a plethora, just people waiting. They're on our distribution list, thousands of people, and they're waiting for that healthy company, and we get pelted with requests right away.
That's interesting. I bet you that's something most people don't realize that own a business. Like, because they're in the bubble of owning their own business. They're living in that forest and can't see the trees. And I bet you, although they believe it's valuable, they might not realize that there's people out there that are readily interested in investing in them.
A lot of them are people that have been jaded, if you will, been in the industry, could have maybe in the 30s. They may have saved a little bit of money from their 401k or whatever, and they realize that they're making a ton of money for their boss, and they might even be getting a great salary, but they realize they can't go to their boss and say, hey, can you triple my salary so I can retire well?
Right.
And then they see their buddies that are working just as hard, but they have their own business, and they've got their own issues running a business, but they also see an asset being built that's growing faster than, a 401k. So there are a lot of people like that. They're just waiting. They may be really, really good at what they do, and they realize that they could do what their boss is doing. And sometimes the boss is absentee. He's not even working in the business,
right,
working on it. And that could be the successor, but that doesn't happen all the time.
Yeah, people that have the entrepreneurial gene tend to go in that direction. And then there's a whole other sector of people that believe they have the entrepreneurial gene, and they become jealous or adversarial, and they want to do it, but they never do it. But it's a self-selecting sample of people that have the the will, the grit, the spit, the drive, the work ethic, the accountability to do that. And, I've been on both sides of the coin, and I've seen a lot of people think they want to be a business owner, but in reality, they want all the perks that they see the business owner enjoying, but not all the responsibility. So that's a difficult lesson. And I think those people end up getting in business and not making it, only because you got to have a lot of skill sets to own a business. It's not simple.
Right. And I'll say this, have been on both sides of the table. And like I was prefacing earlier, working with startup companies. I love startups. I'm one of those guys. I'm an entrepreneur. I've done many startups. It's very difficult. I would say as a broker now, really consider buying cash flow. And, a couple of thoughts on that. Being able to work in the business versus on the business. We talked about that at our CEO Roundtable.
Yep.
I had a software development company, but I can't write a lick of code. So what did that do for me? It forced me to be a good leader and a good salesperson. And so I was able to grow the business and hire really great people who could do the work. But you don't have to necessarily be a mechanic to own a mechanic shop, if you have the right people. For instance, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right? If you have an oilfield service company, but you're not the one that's in the field doing the work, then that's better than you're working. So there's a lot of entrepreneurs who I realized a long time ago after doing a line of credit with Chase that we're all in the same business. We're in the money business. And I was telling you a little bit about my story, but we better follow the money trail, because you may make business doing what you do and other people make business doing what they do, but everybody's in the same business. We're in the cash flow money business. But starting something and getting from 0 to 1 is the hardest thing to do. But taking a business that's been healthy, they've got cash flow, they've got employees, they've already went through all the hardship of the ups and downs to kind of right-size the ship. If you can buy that business and leverage a bank to do it, all day long. And the people who even have the money to buy a business cash, they typically won't. They're still going to leverage debt, buy a business, keep the dry powder, and then create a portfolio of companies underneath that umbrella. Maybe have the same back office, HR, accounts payable, accounts receivable, but they're leveraging that back office to have a portfolio of companies that have their own people within them and grow it. But even if you're just looking for business number one, I'd say look for a healthy business, buy cash flow, leverage debt. In the SBA 7A program, unbelievable. Up to $5 million, you can put typically 10 to 15% down and buy a business leveraging the SBA. Again, up to $5 million. So lower
and good rates too.
Decent rates, 9.5. It'll trend with the interest rates that the feds have. But most people don't even think about that. They think if they're going to buy a business, they have to have cash. No. There's a great program out there for people in the United States who want to. What the U.S. wants is small businesses to flourish, because when small businesses flourish, we all flourish. So that program, the SBA 7A program, if you haven't looked it up, look it up. It's and come to us. We're no pressure. If you just want advice, come talk to us. Come talk to me. I talk to anybody. I love helping people be successful. But I would say, even if you're looking at a business expansion loan, that's something to consider. But it's a well-kept secret for a lot of people that people need to know about. Local banks are great too. We love our local banks, but they can't do the same thing as well as some national banks that work with the SBA.
Can local banks participate in the SBA programs
Yeah.
as a percentage? They could do a share?
There's some actually that are SBA lenders. There's the difference between a preferred SBA lender, meaning that the SBA kind of have vetted those banks, and whatever decisions they make, they stand behind it. The others are SBA lenders, but they still have to go through another SBA channel and get that approval before they can approve a loan. And some banks really still need the same collateral. What's cool about SBA is you can have zero collateral, and we could still do a loan based on cash flow. So where a bank typically needs whatever, 40, 50,
Right.
60% collateral, SBA says no, you've got a down payment and you don't have collateral, then we can still loan you the money if you've been in the industry and you've been vetted, et cetera. Great program. We do most of our Main Street acquisitions through that program.
So you can help people on both sides of the coin, people that have money to invest in businesses, or people that want a business, and also people that want to sell their businesses.
Yes. Yeah. We work with all. Primarily, we're looking for healthy businesses that, when the time is right, they're ready for a succession plan, which is something we should talk about as well. If you sell your business, I mentioned earlier, I had a 2-year agreement. I stayed for 4. That's atypical. They just treated me well, and my family got to travel the world, as I mentioned. But for most businesses, we have a succession plan where you're going to stay on with the new buyer for at least 2 to 3 months acutely, and they've already paid for that, so that's usually not paid for. But if you want to stay on longer, they can pay you to stay on longer. The SBA allows you to stay up to a year because they want that transition from the one owner to the next. But that's always important. It's always going to be business as usual for that continuation of the business to stay healthy. And that's always in writing, signed off on. This is what we've agreed to, and it's absolutely critical for the handoff. But we make sure that that's in place.
Very good. How has your personal risk tolerance and business knowledge helped you in this sector? Like, I'm sure when you first start talking to a business, you can probably read the cliff notes of the conversations and the initial valuation, take a glance at a P&L and a balance sheet, and kind of know where it's going.
Yeah, we do. And sometimes I tell people, because I usually, before I ask them to invest in a valuation, I'll get that basic information and I'll say it's not worth the investment. It's not worth even starting the process. Right. Even though it's just a few $1,000 to do a valuation, I just say, why don't you work on these few things and then come back to us? Right. For others, and I don't like to pre-screen, but there's some that you just know right away, it's just going to be a waste of time, energy, because they already know. I made $800,000 this year, so I should be able to get 4 times that, right? I'm like, no, that's not how it works. I won't sell for less. That it's unrealistic expectations, and I know I work straight commission, so I take the risk with you. I'm on your side of the table. I don't get paid unless we get to a close. Some brokers will charge an ongoing fee every month. We don't do that. We're on the side. I take the same risk with you. I'm on your side of the table. I'm negotiating on your behalf, and I'm trying to find the perfect buyer to take your baby to the next step. I understand risk. I've been doing it since college.
Yeah, that alignment conversation is important because in my experience, most small business owners are not aligned with the actual value of their company. And doing that right at the beginning kind of saves you some time and saves them some heartache of you delivering them a less than favorable response when they had this expectation that they were getting a new car for Christmas and they get a shovel or a chainsaw. You know what I mean?
Well, again, back to like selling your house, you have to look at comps. You have to be realistic. Price per square foot. I know you've got this addition, but it's not with air conditioning, so it's not.
No, but it's a beautiful man cave.
Exactly.
I watched the Saints win the Super Bowl in here. It has value to me.
Right. So it's a loss leader for us, but it's a truth teller, and it's critical.
You and I are connected on social media, and I've noticed you really enjoying your life the last few years. Trips, diving, travel. Tell me how enjoyable it is for you to get to this stage of your life and better enjoy the fruits of all your hard work and labor. How did you get into scuba diving, and tell me about some of your most recent trips?
Yeah. My wife and I eloped and we went to Kauai and we got married. That was in 1988, and I couldn't hold my breath long enough. And so I went back to a friend of mine, Tim, and said, I'm getting certified. He said, let's do it. So I got certified in 1990 and haven't looked back. In the mid-90s, late 90s, started pairing that with hunting underwater as a spear fisherman. We go out to the platforms. We've been doing that since the late 90s and just pick out the biggest red snapper and grouper, and it's so much fun. And now we got our friends' children that are better than us, that hold their breath. They can. It's unbelievable. But we do it with tanks, and we have a blast. But in general, it's been amazing to just enjoy life. It's a short life. We got to realize we can't just work all our lives and then on our last breath we're doing some kind of deal. So we've been real blessed.
Well, that's cool. I tend to, as we get older, time passes faster. The days are longer, but the months are lightning fast. The years are lightning fast. And I've chosen, since a few major changes that happened in my life about 6 or 7 years ago, to be the chief memory maker of my family and in my relationship, doing special, important, tangible things that are not commercial, spending time creating events and memories with the kids and the grandkids. And that's so beautiful. And I guess one of the reasons that's important to people that are in business is I've known a lot of workaholics. I suffered from the workaholic gene for many years. And there's nothing wrong with work ethic. I have a strong work ethic, and I always will till the day I take my last breath. But it's very important that you find a way to unplug. And recently, during the Christmas holidays, because of the wonderful team we have here at Pharma-Safe, I was able to unplug for almost a week and a half, didn't check a single email. And I had what we call Popo and JoJo Fest. Jody and I invite all the grandkids to the house, and they get to create the agenda, and we do whatever they want. The only caveat is it can't be 100% commercial activities like going to Jump Zone and stuff like that. That's all fun, but it's got to be stuff that we can do with them. So we cooked with them. We sang karaoke with them. We did arts and crafts. We went to the park. We ran up the hill at Monkus Park, and we did things that they're going to remember for the rest of their life. And that fills the emotional bank account of people who work in business to enable them to go back to business and work through the day and know that, you actually did something with your time. Versus I can remember many, many years ago, some of the neighbors, they never saw their parents. They were both working. They were always working. And when they did come home, they were aggravated and pissed off, and you couldn't even go in their house anymore. And I view that to be a terrible existence. So I think the message that I'd like to get out to most small business owners is, look, you've worked very hard to build something. Unhitch that thing from around your neck when the timing is right and enjoy your life instead of being married to it until it goes in the tank. And I guess what I've seen, and I'm not specifically in your business, but I've always been a study of business, and I see people hold on way too long, like a quarterback that's 45 in the NFL, trying to win that ring, and eventually he's just ousted out of the industry. And that happens a lot, I guess. Do you have any anecdotal stories you can tell about both sides of that coin? The person that hung on too long and the result was terrible, and the person that was able to leave on a high note and drop the mic and walk away?
Yeah. So many things come to mind when you say this. One recent one last year, a guy that we sold his business for, 77 years old, and he's been doing this his whole life, 50 years plus in the business. And I remember him looking at me and saying, "Pete, what am I going to do when I sell?" I said, "Brother, you can do whatever you want. You got a place in New Mexico. You can do, but this is all I know." I said, "It's going to be okay. The people that you're selling to want you to hang around. If you want to just come hang around, have coffee, and they'll probably pay you commission just to keep, some of those relationships going." And then we crossed. It was hard. He tried 3 times to sell. We had buyers, and he's like, "I can't do it." And he finally sold, and he's like, "This is good. This is really good." Sold another one recently, same thing. Guy built a great business, and but he knew he was ready to get out. It was just a matter of finding the right buyer. We did, and it was a big pressure relief. I remember the same thing when I sold. I can relate to that. I also have seen the giddiness of somebody who was just poised and ready, and when the right business came around and we made that amazing connection. I'm thinking of one just recently. Man, his wife was poised for this business, and it's like they've been waiting, and when it finally happened, not only did the seller and the buyer connect, but the where God had placed all their skill sets aligned, and it's perfect.
Right.
And it's easy. You take it to the next step.
That's
And so
exciting.
that it is very exciting. And you're talking about something that's even more important, I think, is really quality of life. We see quality of life tips the scales. I have an amazing son. He just got married, and his wife has an 11-year-old. So I became a grandfather last year for the first time. And
Congratulations.
thank you. And we do what's called the Test Burger Challenge. So he and I go around Acadiana, and and we've got over 30 places where we rate the hamburgers. I look more forward to that more than just about anything. And how do you put a price on that?
That's beautiful. We did something similar. Jody and I both love gumbo, cooking gumbo, eating gumbo, all the different things about gumbo. So we started a website called Dr. Gumbo, spelled Gumbeaux. And we go around tasting gumbo, and we bring the kids and share it with them. And we kind of talk about flavor profiles and things like that. But it was all initiated by reading Ken Wells's book, The Gumbo Life. And Ken Wells is a guy who grew up in Terrebonne Parish, worked for the Courier, worked for the Wall Street Journal. And he wrote a really good book on gumbo, where he talks about gumbo is truly one of the only dishes that has every culture mixed up in it. And so you can't say that it's Cajun, because it's Indian, it's Middle Eastern, it's French, it's got all the cultures and all the flavors in it. And the history of it is so amazing. Teaching the kids about it gives them a sense of, oh, every food culture is in this dish. And every house you go to, oh, my mama, my daddy, my uncle's gumbo is the best because, and they're all different. And it's really funny to us that every gumbo is different. And it's pretty surprising sometimes, the gumbo you taste in restaurants, sometimes it's good, sometimes it ain't good at all. So it's pretty interesting. So we do that too, but we use gumbo as our thing. But we've been having a lot of fun with it.
Well, it makes me think about diversity. You think about the difference between, a shrimp and a piece of sausage in a gumbo. And some people love okra. I grew up in New Orleans. I love okra in a gumbo. Some people don't. But you think about the diversity of our culture here. And just talking about quality tips of scales, probably one of my favorite things is to work with younger men that you get a chance to build into and mentor. I was part of a inner city ministry here for a long time, still am connected with it, called Bridge Ministry of Acadiana. And there are a lot of kids who grow up without a father, without the things that we're talking about, and doing something as simple as taking them fishing, or crabbing or hunting or anything. Just go anywhere where they don't have that opportunity to do so, never have in their life. It's amazing, the simplest things. Breathing underwater for the first time, wearing a mask, just anything, that giving back. And then for the younger kids that are maybe not college bound, but are looking for a trade, just giving them any experience, just seeing what you do, walking with you, walking through a plant, walking through, going to the field, just anything, a little service call. Sometimes that becomes the biggest thing they've ever experienced that year. And we take it for granted. We're very privileged, but there's a lot of people who aren't so much. And I'd say, as a Christian, let's look for those. Look for those more, where we can build into people's lives and just share. You and I have an incredible love for one another, even if we don't see each other, once a year. It doesn't matter.
It's the same thing.
The relationship's there, and I think we can build more of those.
That's pretty cool. As we come to the end of this discussion today, what message do you want to get out about stewardship or mentorship or leadership? That give me your message that you want to get out to the world.
Yeah, I think Zig Ziglar said it. He said to get the things in life that you want, just help enough people get what they want. And that message stuck with me since the 90s when I was listening to Zig. Most people don't even know who he is.
Yeah.
But I think that's the key. If you see somebody you can help them. And that's what I think we get a chance to do. We never know how it'll turn out, but we can certainly do our best to help any business owner, any buyer, mentor anybody, just help somebody get to the next step.
Be of service. Be of service. Tully Blanchard and I spent about an hour and 20 minutes talking in a session recently, and that was the through line of the session. My great-grandfather, my grandfather, my father, and his lineage taught him the same thing. Be of service. Don't be about yourself. Be of service, and it comes back to you tenfold. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not the next day. Maybe it comes back to you in comfort, spirit, grace, whatever it is, but it always comes back. And it took me a long time as a young man to realize that. But once I did, I became a lot happier as a person. My emotional bank account became full because I really enjoy helping people. And I didn't know how much I enjoyed it. It was just a way of life for my dad, my grandpa, and great-grandpa. And I just started doing it. And over time, and through, my folks passing, you become more reflective as you get older. You become more nostalgic, I guess. And I've recently become writing my life story for my grandkids because they're not going to know things that happened long before their time. So I'm documenting it. I have documented my mom, my dad, my grandpa's story for them. And as I'm telling my story, I'm realizing all these intersecting moments in my life that brought me to where I am today, and how the varied path I had also a lot of different things I did in my life. But all those things prepared me for what I do today. And all of it was supported by mentors that mentored me. The guy I work for at the bank when I worked for years, I love him like an additional father. The people I work for at the ambulance company, the people that taught me my paramedic class, the people that taught me my business classes, all those people took time to help me and cared about me. And it kind of rubbed off on me, and I got that virus on me. And now when we have the ability to help somebody, it's just wonderful. It's a great place to be.
Yeah. I remember, I don't know about you, but I grew up with an amazing father, and he was actually born in 1915, believe it or not. He had to drop out of college or high school when the Great Depression hit. He was 14 years old. And so he taught me that I can do anything. He joined the Army Air Corps and got his pilot license before he got his driver's license. And so I grew up with a person who said, other people have done it, you can do it. So I was very fortunate. I had that encouragement always. And he taught me about going earning. But I wanted to say this, that in the 90s, when I was telling you about that transition with that young kid who came to us about that Windows 95 thing, I'd just come back from a Promise Keepers conference in Boulder, Colorado, and James Dobson spoke with Focus on the Family, and he said he interviewed people in the twilight of their years, people in their 80s and 90s, and asked them two questions. One was, what's the most important thing in life? And the second one was, what would you do different if you were to look back and do something differently? And they all had the same response. And the first one is what you would think. What's the most important thing is those you love and those that love you. And then the second thing caught me off guard and caused me to start a business. And he said they all wish they would have taken more risks in life. They played it safe. And they wondered why at the end of their life, why didn't I just take that risk? So that risk of going, helping somebody, meeting somebody, reaching out to somebody as you feel the prompting and helping somebody, that's a risk. Just like starting a business is a risk, but you'll never know. When I had the chance to look forward and project back, if I'd have taken the safe route and gone through the home office versus doing this offshore thing, I don't know where my life would be. Same thing happened when NOV offered me a really incredible job, but I knew I had to move to Houston and I'd be working in South America all the time. But I look forward and press back. I'm like, I don't want to do that. So taking risks, we don't want to get to the end of our life going, I played it safe.
Right.
There's a calculated risk, as our wives would tell us.
Yeah.
Don't be stupid.
Yeah.
Right.
We're not talking lottery tickets here. We're talking about, an informed, planned chance and betting on yourself. It's kind of what we're saying.
Yeah, don't ready, fire, aim all the time. Sometimes you just go with instinct when you're in business, as you know. But I don't know. That always resonated with me, Doug, is that there's a lot of people who play it safe, and I see that, and they get into their 70s, 80s, 90s and just wonder what if. Mm-hmm. Let's not do that.
Very cool. I think that's a great place to end it, Pete.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time today.
Yeah,
this has been wonderful. I smell a session 2 in the back recesses of my mind. And one of the things we're doing here is we're setting up a panel discussion format where we can have 4 people here. So if you have some ideas of subjects, people to talk about leadership, mentorship, or any of the subjects we covered today, get with me and we'll put something together. I enjoy learning people's story. I enjoy talking to people, and I think there's a lot of people that have a lot to say that can be passed on to the rest of the listeners.
Yeah, that's what we want to do. Yeah, pure learning. Yeah, I appreciate our time. I can think of a lot of sessions that would be beneficial to. I always think about the next gen. There's a next gen that we can pass on wisdom to of things. A lot of times things we've done wrong, and we say don't do that, which is just as important. I
love my wonderful mistakes. They really, I reflect on them often. It's like, oh, that was fun.
It was an expensive learning opportunity.
It's like an executive MBA, not in the school. Well, thanks, Pete.
You bet, Doug.
All right, buddy.